Hi everyone, my name is Kasia. I'm the program assistant at Hart House. Welcome. I'd like to start off by saying we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. I was born on this land in Canada, and my parents are immigrants from Trinidad and Jamaica. So it's important to acknowledge the land and whom it belongs to, as well as to respect it. Especially as a woman of color, I feel it's important to be allies with Indigenous people and stand in solidarity with them within these spaces and beyond. And now I'd like to pass it on to Kaylina.
Sego, everyone. My name is Kayliana Smoke. I'll do my whole introduction in Mohawk. Sego Sego Gwego, Gaji Nanta Yungwats, which means hello all. My name is Gaji Nanta, which is my Mohawk name, which means when the wind blows over the flowers. I am working with the Center for Student Engagement at UTM as their Indigenous Initiatives Engagement Assistant. Some background of myself: I am a Mohawk from Akwesasne. I have been born and raised here, and I'm coming from you here today. And I'll just be doing an introduction of our chef. So his name is Charles Catchpole. He is an Anishinaabe chef and entrepreneur from Couchiching First Nation. Charles trained at Loyalist and George Brown colleges. Charles was co-owner of a successful restaurant for several years before stepping away and moving back to Toronto to work at the prestigious Canoe restaurant. He has also spent time as a manager of the historic Arcadian Court and as a head chef of the Orchard View Conference Center in Ottawa, Ontario. Charles decided to leave Canoe and go out on his own again, this time in another direction. He created Charger Foods, selling a line of unique hot sauces and salad dressings. When now out marketing his own products at various venues, he can be found catering parties of all sizes, including his own wedding. So with that, I'll give it off to Chef Charles.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here with you all today and to share a recipe. And so today we're going to make bannock. Bannock is a bread, and it has some traditional in it. There's certainly a debate about bannock, whether it is a traditional food or not a traditional food. There's some good things about it, and there's some certainly bad things about bannock. So bannock is a very simple bread made very simple ingredients: flour, baking powder, salt, some type of fat. I'm using Crisco today. And what I mean by it being good and bad, the history of bannock dates back to a time when reservations were supplied with shelf-stable foods, and we were not allowed to, not me particularly, but our people weren't allowed to hunt on their own lands without permission from the Indian agents. They weren't allowed to leave and go off reserve without permission. So the foods that were given to them to eat were cheap, and bannock was basically made out of desperation. Simple things that last for a long time on your pantry: flour, salt, baking powder, some type of lard. And so it does have a bad connotation to it, but at the same time, all of those mothers and grandmothers and aunties that cooked and kept us, our people, nourished and fed with what they were given. So my take on it, it's got the good and the bad, but it's also very simple, very tasty, and it's a treat. It's not something that I have on a daily basis. So on that note, let's get a mixing bowl and we'll start. Just got a simple mixing bowl, and I'm just using all-purpose flour. I'm going to use about 3.5 cups. You'll see how easy this recipe is to make. Do try it at some point. So flour, It's also one of those things that we all have those things that our mothers or grandmothers made for us, and you can have somebody else's and you think, oh, that's good, but it's not as good as my grandmother's or the one that you grew up having. So my bannock, I think, is pretty tasty, but not as good as my wife's.
Chef Charles,
Yep.
are we able to see your bowl when you're kind of putting things in and yeah, that would be great.
Yep.
For folks. Thank you. And just yeah, that would be perfect. Thanks.
So right now it's just got the flour and the baking powder, but I'll tilt this down here for.
Perfect. That's perfect.
And the salt, and I'll mix the 3 dry ingredients together here. So if I was going to be making this a flavored bannock, I was going to put cranberries or raisins, blueberries. I've done savory ones as well with fresh herbs, diced apple and cinnamon, cheese, whatever you want to put into it. This is when I would add those ingredients. But for today, we're just going to make a straight up simple version of it. So my lard. So this is the part where we get a little messy. I'm just going to take one hand's holding the bowl, and one hand is going to take the fat, and I'm just going to pinch it through the flour and break it up. And as I said in the recipe, I'm using Crisco, but I've done it with other types of fats and give it a little bit extra flavor. So I've like done a bacon and cheese bannock with and use some of the bacon drippings. You can use butter, you can use duck fat, very rich.
Chef Charles, just curious, did you just use 3.5 cups of flour or 3 cups of flour?
I did about 3.5.
3.5. Okay, thank you.
And would it work with coconut oil?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, any type of fat. It's just a simple. It just helps it bind it and help to keep it together. So yes, something that's solid though, so that it will melt when it's actually in the oven. I wouldn't use like straight up oil.
Right. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
I don't know, Kellyanne, if you wanted to ask it around memories.
Sure. I had a question about what is your favorite memory of making bannock? Like, is it with a specific person or place or event?
Favorite memory of making bannock. Okay, so I'm just adding the water here, and I'm going to mix it together. Probably when. That's a good question. Lots of good times when I've made bannock, and lots of fun things for events that I've done for catering. This you will see. I'm not just making a plain bannock. I'm going to do some fun things with it as well, because it's really a quick thing to put together, and it's certainly not going to take an hour to have it done and ready for us. I know that in the introduction, she had said that I catered my own wedding, which is partially true. I did all of the menu and all of the food prep, and then we had a caterer just basically heat and serve everything that I had made day of, and we had a lot of bannock that day, but that wasn't made by me. That was made by my wife's aunt. And I don't have to get all of the flour that's on the bottom. I just want to bring it together. Here's my piece of dough. Now, as I was saying earlier, I'm going to tilt it back up, so I'm going to talk for a second. A bit more. So bannock, the history of bannock also dates quite, as I was saying, dates way back pre-indoor electric stoves. So this would have been made and cooked over campfires. So it's still quite easy to do. And to prep, you can just take your dry ingredients, grab some water from a lake, or bring a bottle of water and make it at a campfire. And just as you would roast marshmallows, the dough would be taken and put around the stick. I'll just pretend with a butter knife. So you just form the dough around your stick, and you would roast it over an open fire, and eat it that way. And as time went on, I mean, now we have indoor stoves and things, but it would have been done over the campfire, then indoors, like on a wood stove and things like that, as time has gone on, and now in an oven. But the one thing that I still do that predates, because that's just the way I was shown how to make it, halfway through cooking, turn it over, because like I just said, originally, if you're doing it over an open fire, you would have had to turn it at some point, because the heat's only coming from the bottom. Where our indoor appliances now, obviously the whole oven is hot. So yeah, halfway through, we'll turn it over, and we'll cook the other side. You get the other side at the bottom nice and brown. So today, at this point, the dough, it's just sitting here. You can put it into a cake pan, or into however you'd like to shape it. Of course, when I'm catering, I'll use like a nice cake pan and push it into the corners and make sure so that when I slice it, it gives nice perfect pieces. But I'm just going to put it onto a well.
Sorry, someone wants to know what you preheat the oven to.
Oh, sorry about that. I've got the oven preheated at 375.
Okay, thank you.
So just push it onto, I'll use a cookie sheet, and we'll throw that in the oven. It's back over here.
I have another question, Chef Charles. Kind of like for people who don't know, what's the difference between Vatic and fry bread?
Depending on people's communities. So this is a baked bannock, so I'm putting it in the oven. Fry bread would be, my recipe is a little bit different for fry bread. Some people you can just taking that and shaping it into like hockey puck sizes, and throwing it in some deep hot oil and frying it. So it's actually fried bread, where people have different names for them as well. Some people call it baked bannock, fried bannock, and there is a difference certainly between the two. Fried bannock is usually what you would see. It is what you would see in an Indian taco when you're on the powwow. Anybody's never had an Indian taco, you should try and make one. So basically a piece of fried bread topped with chili, and then topped with all your taco seasoning or taco toppings, cheese, lettuce, salsa, sour cream, whatever you'd like. Okay, so basically that's it. I know.
I have a question, Chef Charles.
Yeah.
Someone's dough is falling apart. Should they add more water or fat?
Water. Just a few more drops of water and it should come together. And that's another thing. It's very easy to fix. Fix it up if you've got too dry. Just add a little bit more water. And if it's a little too wet, add a little bit more flour. The measurements are never exact for me. And it also depends on, with most baking, depends on the humidity in your room as well. Can change it just a little bit.
Approximately how long on one side, on the first side?
So
Yeah.
I just set a timer for usually about 17 or 18 minutes, and then I'll flip it and I'll check it. And the second side, 15 minutes or so. Also depends on how big you're making it. So you saw how I pushed it out flat into more of a flat loaf. I'm just going to wash my hands here.
I just wanted to make a comment because just around, the piece of connecting to so many different cultures and being of Caribbean culture, as you were putting the dough together, it's like we have our own version of that in a sense called the fried dumpling.
Yeah.
And then I know when we were sharing information about this, also people were asking, like, is that a bake? Which is another kind of Caribbean fried food. So it's so interesting how, the process of kind of food and how it travels across cultures. Yeah.
For sure. It's funny you say that because I've at catering events where I've had people that have been from the Caribbean in attendance, and they'll be like, this is like what I have at home. This is exactly the same as what I make at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same, right?
Cool. But I've never had the baked version of it. So that would be, I wish I was following along right now.
So as I said, it's already in the oven. It's going to take a while for it to be done, but through the magic of always being prepared on a TV show or one of these, I have one made. Actually, I have two. So that you saw how I shaped it. Here, I've actually shaped it sort of like a little French baguette. One. And the other I made round and relatively flat. So this is just my own interpretations and ways of playing with it. So I'm going to take these back. Sorry for the a one-man show, cameraman and cook and everything. Tilt you back down so you can actually watch what I'm doing here. So going back to talking about the history of Bannock and things. So these are things that I've made up. This isn't anything traditional that I've seen many other people doing. So this baguette style that I'm doing, I'm just going to cut them into small little rounds.
Chef Charles, did you cook the baguette for the same, did you bake it for the same amount of time as the larger shaped one that you just threw in the oven?
This didn't take as long because of its size. This was only about 20 minutes.
Okay, cool.
So when I went to turn it over, I thought, oh, it's pretty much already done. So all these little rounds, I'm just going to put onto a baking sheet. We'll toast them up, and I'll make little appetizers and hors d'oeuvres out of them. Last week I had some leftover bannock from that I had made, and I turned the last little piece into croutons. Just cut it up into little squares and brown them up in a frying pan with a little bit of oil, and had a nice salad with bannock croutons. That was fun.
Wow, there's so many different ways to use it. There's a question in the chat around how do you know when the dough is ready? So what is the texture it should be? And how thick should the dough be when you put it in the oven? So 2 questions.
Okay. Once it comes together, so don't overwork your dough, because when it's cooking, the fat that you mixed in there will melt, and then it gives out little puffs and pockets and helps it rise. As soon as it comes together, it doesn't have to be, like I said, it's going to form itself and hold itself together. So the second part of that question was?
How thick should the dough be when you put it in the oven?
So for that one, it was probably about 1.5 inches. This one I did a lot flatter. So that's what I'm trying to say is that, I mean, there is no right way or wrong way with it. Just do it however you want it to, however you want to make it, so that it's
To your liking.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So here I made this one quite thin because I'm actually going to take this now and turn it into a pizza.
Ooh.
So I've got some pizza sauce. Put you back down so you can see what I'm doing here again.
Chef Charles, I have another question. What is your favorite topping for bannock? Because I've seen it's like turned into dessert, and you've always also mentioned it being Indian taco. But like, what's your top #1 topping that you always have with bannock?
Straight out of the oven, while it's still warm.
Cheese whiz. I have another question. So how much baking powder, salt, and Crisco?
Sorry, so it was about 3.5 cups of flour, 1.5 tablespoons of the baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of salt. The Crisco was about 1/4 cup, and I mixed that together, and then the water was 1.25 cups.
Cool, okay. Someone else said that they hear it tastes really good with jam.
Absolutely. Nice warm bannock for breakfast with butter and jam. I'm going to highly recommend Monopguad preserves. If you've never tried Monopguad preserves, they are that's my wife's company. I'm not sure if you know that or not. Doing a little self-promotion there. So I've got some cheese, some tomato sauce, and I'm just going to put some sliced pepperoni on here.
Good question. Where can we buy the preserves?
My website is chargerfoods.myshopify.com. And when I'm normally non-pandemic, I have a catering company, and Charger Foods is a combination of Charles, and my wife's name is Jermaine, so the Char and the Jer. And
.myspotify.com.
Shopify.
Shopify. The music here. There we go.
Kind of hot sauces and salad dressings, and she has her line of preserves that are on the website. I'm just going to throw the pizza and those little toasts in the oven, get them a little color on them. Okay, so while that's toasting up, the little hors d'oeuvres that I'm going to do, I've just got some brie cheese here, and I'm going to use some of the preserves here, and just do some little fancy hors d'oeuvres here for you guys.
Chef Charles, I have another question. What is your #1 favorite powwow food? I'm just assuming besides bannock, like there's so much to choose from, but do you have a favorite?
You can't go wrong with an Indian taco.
You really can.
Wow, there's, like you said, there's always good fish and chips out of Powwow. Um, bison burgers, of course.
Oh, yeah. That's another use for bannock, bison burgers. You make bannock and you just put a burger between that. Oh.
Delicious.
What about drink? Do you have a favorite drink? I don't know if they have it out like for Anishinaabe like powwows, but strawberry drink.
Strawberry drink. I'm not a big fan of strawberries, so yes, I see it always at powwows and have made it plenty of times for my own catering, but I'm not really a big fan of it. I do for my catering a couple different iced teas, like a cedar iced tea, or maple syrup sweetened regular black iced tea. Yeah, powwow food is always fun, always good. Yeah, did I mention fish and chips? Usually you can get some good fish.
Yes. Freshly caught fish. Ooh.
Bannock and click.
What's that?
Click?
Yeah.
Like the canned meats, like Spam.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it. Well, I heard of Spam, but not click.
Click's a better version of it. I'm going to say, but yeah, certainly not healthy.
I don't think a lot of powwow foods are, but it goes right to the heart. It just comforts you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Chef Charles,
Yep.
I'd love to know just a little more about your history in food, and like what really inspired you and drew you to creating through food.
So as a chef going to culinary school, my journey as an Indigenous chef and claiming to be an Indigenous chef has only really taken precedent in the past, I'd say 6 or 7 years that I've put that as my forefront. Like when you go to culinary school, they're not teaching us about any Indigenous foods. You're learning French techniques and the traditional French sauces and everything like that. Maybe some Italian and maybe some theory of other cultures, but nothing to do with Canadian cuisine and the people, like First Nations traditional foods. So a couple years ago, I was living in Barrie, and my wife and I had found this Indigenous food summit. It's called the Great Lakes Intertribal Food Summit, and it was being held in Meskwaki Settlement, which is near Des Moines, Iowa. And so we took a vacation. We went to Des Moines, flew into Des Moines, and then drove off to the reservation. And it was held at their hotel casino is almost identical to Casino Rama, just kind of weird. It was like we arrived and almost looked the same as it does in Rama. And there was Indigenous chefs from all over, mostly all over the States. Certainly there's some other Canadians there as well. And the conference included all of our meals. And that was a life-changing experience for me, from seeing all of these other native chefs trying to find their way and trying to recapture and reclaim all of our traditional foods. The first morning we got up and we went down to the breakfast buffet, and it was beautiful. I remember there was some venison sausages, and there was corn mush, purple corn mush, which is basically like a corn porridge. And they had some candied nuts and dried fruit and fresh fruit there to put on toppings and maple syrup. And Then we went to a bison farm nearby. It was only about a 5-minute ride. We watched a bison be sacrificed for the festival, or for the event. We did prayer and ceremony for it and thanked it for giving its life to feed and nourish us all. And we took the bison back to the hotel where it was being done. And it wasn't just me. There was like 30 or 40, 50 people involved. But we all took turns skinning the animal, breaking down the animal, all with hand tools and knives. No butchery machines or any modern anything. We did it all with hand tools. And I was with that animal from 8:30 in the morning when we were at the farm. And the last thing I did that day was help tie up the hide onto a frame, because one of the other workshops for the next day or day after, they were going to tan the hide, which I didn't participate in that. But like, to be with that animal and see how it got prepared, and every part of it was used and fed us all, like 200-300 people over the next 3 or 4 days, and how it transformed into so many different meals. People always ask me, like, well, what are traditional Indigenous foods? And I think it's kind of ironic that it's now a catchy thing. A few years ago, CBC did a TV show called The 100-Mile Diet, and people had to try and live off of things that were within 100 miles. You couldn't have coffee, you couldn't have bananas, there was no oranges or anything, whatever grew around them for that 100-mile radius. And I thought, that's just a traditional Indigenous diet from back before things were shipped by plane and cargo ships around the world, where you can, big grocery stores. What did you eat? You ate what was around you, what you hunted, what you grew, what you foraged. One of the other workshops that I did at that same festival was a foraging walk. And the lady that ran it said, it was kind of a funny joke. She likes watching like post-apocalyptic zombie movies and things, and where people are after a nuclear war or whatever, and they're running through the bush, and they're like, we gotta go find food. And she's like, why don't you just stop? I mean, those plants are edible that you just passed, and those plants are edible that you just walked by, and you can make a nice salad with those greens that are over there. And I thought, I don't know myself how to identify most of those plants, but certainly I'm constantly learning and trying to recapture and get more knowledge of land-based foods and what's around us. So yeah, I mean, Indigenous food, the irony of it is that, it's a local diet, and that's now a trendy thing. And everybody goes to the farmer's market and gets the fresh local produce, including myself. That's what I do as well. And, but that's what a traditional diet would have been. And of course, yes, wild rice and salmon and smoked fish and venison and bison, lots of berries and things like that. But you may have heard of the Three Sisters vegetables: beans, corn, and squash. So yeah, so that's my take on Indigenous food and how I'm trying to teach. And it's not something I can just teach, because I'm still learning. And that's one thing with being a chef and realizing you never stop learning. There's always new foods. There's always new things that I'm being introduced to, and new cooking techniques and kitchen equipment. And yeah, so I just love reclaiming and recapturing and learning about the ways and the new and old cooking techniques. As soon as lockdown let up this past spring, me and my wife, one of our first outings was we went camping, rough camping, and we were cooking over an open fire, and I had a just a ball of twine in the car, and I drew a line from one tree to another over top of the fire, and actually hung our food down so that it cooked under the fire, not actually in the fire. It just hung above it, and just kept turning it and spinning it so that it cooked all the way around and all over. And that was an amazing meal. We couldn't believe how just great everything was being cooked over a real fire outside. The extra taste, the extra, just when you do things like that, it tastes better.
Mhm.
I'm going to check on, sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you for sharing that. So many of the things that you shared, like just thinking about your experience, with the bison and being with so many people doing that around food, and that connection must have been unbelievable, right? Like you're doing all of that preparing with so many people a part of it and then eating.
I need that. Sorry, in the background, my wife was going to check to make sure it wasn't burning, and then she ran off the camera. Didn't want to be on camera, but
We can't burn food right now. No. We have another question for you, Chef Charles.
Yeah.
So let's see. Very inspiring story. As an Indigenous chef, do you limit yourself to Indigenous local foods, or do you also try other cultural fusions?
Oh, absolutely. I'm certainly open to trying new foods and new techniques all the time. So I'm going to flip this first. Put you down so you can. So the easiest way for me to invert it, I'm just going to put another pan on top of it. And then just flip it. Careful not to touch the pan. It's straight out of the oven and hot. See, I'm not sure if you can see the colors there, but I mean, it's nice and golden on this side. So that's half done. Throw that back in. And you can see the pizza's coming along nice. Cheese is starting to melt. I'm going to put these back over to the counter again and finish up these hors d'oeuvres.
Looking really good, Chef Charles. Question about your favorite soup.
My favorite soup?
Soup.
I've never thought about having a favorite soup. Can never go wrong with a nice wild rice soup. I like creamy soups too, cream of potato.
I love soup, especially at these times of year. It's just very comforting to the soul. I am so hungry right now. Question again. Oh, it's just a comment. It looks like there's no need for extra oil to keep the pan from sticking to the tray.
Side, no. On the second side, no.
Okay.
So just put a little bit of brie on all the little toasts. I'm just going to top it up with a little bit of cranberry sauce here. This is a cranberry with cinnamon. Put them back in the oven just for a second. Any other questions right now?
Getting a lot of comments in the chat, Chef Charles, just everyone drooling and saying how good everything looks. Question from Laura, just kind of throwing it out to everyone else. How's everyone else's bannock coming along? Hers is on the second side in an unpreheated oven. Oops, and smells great. I think she's trying to stop herself from eating the whole thing. Mine is a bit too thick, so it will just take a bit longer to cook. I'm using a thicker pan, so mine is still in the oven on the first side. So it sounds like everyone is in a bit of a different stage, but getting there.
Good. Yes, something I didn't mention, though, definitely the type of pan you're using will certainly make a difference. I've used a glass pan and it took forever, like a Pyrex dish. So yes, a metal cookie sheet or baking pan will go much quicker than glass or Pyrex. And yes, those that are doing it and it's a little bit thicker, just be patient. It'll get there. And to tell when it's done, I just touch it and tap it. And if it sounds hollow, it's likely cooked. But it's also, I've gone an extra 4 or 5 minutes in the oven where you think, no, it's going to burn. And I've never burnt it. Might get a little dark, but it's never been burnt. So it's a very easy to look after recipe. You don't have too much to worry about of ruining it or burning it.
We actually have a question from the chat. It's from Kasha. What's your favorite part of cooking or being a chef in general? Sharing my knowledge, sharing fun food. So right now we're making bannock, and what most cultures, you break bread with family and friends. So that's why I like making bannock and sharing this recipe with people. As most cultures, when you sit down, you break bread with your friends and family. And this is our bread. Satisfaction of just seeing people's reactions when you're doing catering and, that you've made people happy, that they're, fulfilled and nourished well. And I guess that's my answer. You made me think of that scene from Smoke Signals when it's like, she took the fry bread and then she ripped it in half. We have another question. It says, you mentioned that bacon fat gives the bannock a different taste. Do you have a favorite type of fat to use?
Who doesn't love bannock? Wow, tripping over my own tongue. Who doesn't love bacon? Bacon grease is always good for pretty much everything. And as I mentioned, duck fat, it's pricey, but it's always such a nice, rich and depth of flavor.
And then another one is, does the bannock need to rest a bit right out of the oven? For example, I leave French bread to sit a bit before I slice it into it.
So when I take it out of the oven, it needs to come out of the pan right away. And I'll jump ahead to that now. So when it comes out, take it out of your pan, put it on a cooling rack if you have one. If not, I'll just pretend that this pan is. So put, I see aunties and grandmas doing this a lot. Put a tea towel down, because what will happen is if you leave it in the pan, it will start to sweat, the heat and then the condensation, and then you'll get soggy bread on the bottom. So just put like a tea towel down against the edge of your counter and set it up on top of the tea towel so that only a little portion of your bread might, so the air can circulate around it and it can cool. But yeah, just give it a few minutes to cool down, and then break off a piece and start slather it with some butter or cheese whiz or jam.
We have a few other comments. So thank you for sharing and teaching. Can't wait to share my bannock with my dad. You're right, sharing is beautiful when it turns out good, at least. Haha. Chef, would you should consider doing food kits. It would be great to get to know more Canadian Indigenous food from you at our homes. That would be awesome.
That's a cool idea, yeah.
Yeah, really cool idea, yeah. And someone second that. Great ideas, yes, great ideas. Everyone's great ideas. And cooking classes, more cooking classes. That would be awesome. Yeah, awesome. I do want to remind everybody it is 5 minutes to 6. So we're almost at time. And I know if some people do have to rush, we have gift cards and we'll be announcing the gift card winner soon. So stick around, you get $25 gift card if you win, if you're selected out of the random raffle. And yeah, so it might go a little over. I hope that's okay if folks want to stick behind. But if you have to run, understandable. We'll get that. Rebecca can do the gift card raffle announcement shortly.
Okay, so I just took the pizza and the little hors d'oeuvres out of the oven. I'm just going to bring this back over here and plate them up. So the thing is, when you make the round bannock, like I did, and turn it into a pizza, you actually end up with 2. So I only made 1, but the other half here, I can make another pizza later, or sandwiches, toast for breakfast in the morning.
Can bannock be frozen, Chef Charles?
I've never tried. So I won't know. Sorry.
Yolanda, try it out and let us know. Carmen's asking, have you tried different flours, different types of flours?
Oh, yes. So as I said, I'm just using an all-purpose flour here. I have tried it, usually half and half when I've done different flours, whole wheat or I've done some other like sweet potato flour one time. That was very cool. It was very dense and heavy, but it was very tasty.
Would gluten-free flour work, do you think?
I have tried to make gluten-free and it did not turn out that great. But I know that there are people, if you can't have gluten, it's better than nothing, right? But it didn't turn out terrible. It just, to me, tasted more like a tea biscuit than anything.
Chef Charles, I was just wondering, I don't know if it was mentioned before, but who taught you to make bannock?
Oh, my wife. So it isn't something that I grew up with. My mom talks about her mom having made it, but my mom never actually, and regrets it that she didn't learn how to. So when I met my wife, she made me bannock a couple times, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And then in catering, I was being asked for it, so I had to learn quick.
And we still have a few more questions from the chat. What's your favorite way to serve bannock, alone or with a side?
So
Oh, that looks good.
That looks
bannock
good.
crust pizza and the little brie and cranberry hors d'oeuvres. What's my favorite way to serve it? I guess it depends on what. Sorry, just see my chin. Like I love having it for breakfast, toasting it up and making like a scrambled egg sandwich on bannock is nice. And then at dinner time, it would just like usually be served with a nice soup or a stew, crumble up, break it up into little pieces and throw it in, just as you would crackers, but use bannock instead.
We have another one. I think this is very interesting. Could you use bannock for French toast?
Can you use bannock for French toast? I think I've tried that before, and it just took a little bit longer and a bit more egg because it's so dense that it's going to take a while for it to absorb. But yeah, it was delicious.
And someone's asking how well would this hold up via FedEx?
My wife's saying bannock croutons. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really good.
Okay, so I'm going to take that, the one that we made together, check on it. Ooh. And I'm still doughy, so back in it's going to go. Sorry, I'm making a lot of noise. I'm not sure how many people are actually in this or watching, but thank you all for I know that it's now 6:02. So before anybody leaves, just want to say thank you for coming and watching, and I hope you enjoyed. My bannock, sorry, you don't get to see the final, the finished product because it's still going to be in there for another 10 minutes or so. But I hope I'm seeing lots of thank yous at the bottom. Big Witch, that's
Yes.
sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say there's a lot of really nice messages, and folks really enjoyed this session. Thank you everyone for coming. For those of you who have to run now, thank you so much for coming. Rebecca, I'm not sure if you announced the winners yet.
I can do that right now, Jessica. So thanks everyone for hanging tight. And thanks for all the love you're showing to Chef Charles in the chat. I am using something called wheelofnames.com. I've entered everyone into the raffle, and I'm going to click spin, and it is going to select someone randomly. So let's go. Okay, we've got a winner, Carmen Prades. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but you are the winner of the gift card. So I will be in touch with you after the session to get you your prize. Congratulations. And thanks so much for coming out to the session, Carmen.
Yeah, nice, nice. Okay, so I hope everyone is enjoying their bannock, or if not, going to be enjoying it shortly. For some of us, we'll be using this recording to make our own on another day. But this was truly awesome, inspiring. I just love how versatile, like Rebecca said, and like multi-use bannock is, and you can get really creative with it. I'm sure a lot of the things that you make with it, you probably haven't seen, but just said, hey, let's just try it. And it turns out well. So that's so awesome. So thank you for this cooking lesson. And I think there's so much great vibes and comments in the chat. So I think we'll end here. Folks need to go if they cannot. And
I just want to say real quick, now Nyawagowo for everyone coming, which means thank you in Mohawk.